This is another in the First Read series where I do a reading of a poem by a poet I don't know or know very little about, and it's just for the sheer joy of it, getting to know that person's work. This is why I got into poetry in the first place. Sometimes I feel like on the first reading I don't always read it clearly because I don't know the context. I don't know that person's history, what tradition they came out of, and all those kind of things. So I might totally read it differently the second time, so I'm not even sure if the first reading is of use to other people, but it's just a way into it. It's not a way to teach it or anything like that. So this one is from the Poetry Foundation main page. Is from the March 2023 issue of Poetry. I haven't read too much of the new issues. There's a new editor, so I'm kind of curious to see how things are going. I wasn't too fond of what Poetry has been doing lately, so I'm interested to see how they change direction. So this one was one of their sample poems, and it's called The Artist by Jenny George. Fairly short little poem. Whenever I look at a poem, I look at the shape of it first, and before I read it, that tells me a little bit about the tradition that person sees themselves within. And looking at this one, it's very boxy. I count up the lines. Looks like there's 11 in a quick count. Snake lies in the open, dormant in the sleeve of heat, a gilded orphan. So there's different syllable counts in these lines. That suggests this is open form. I don't see a rhyme scheme, so I'm going to assume this is open form, or what people call free verse. I don't read these first, and so sometimes when I read them, I'll read through it and I realize, oh, that's actually a triolet or something like that. This is a little long for that form, so maybe we'll see what it is as we go through it. But anyway, the artist itself, the title. The title sets us up for a poem about an artist or about being an artist or some connection to that. It's a fairly general title, so we'll see what happens. A snake lies in the open, dormant in its sleeve of heat. So there's a snake. I'm not sure what this has to do with an artist, but we have a snake in the open, dormant in its sleeve. So there's a snake out in the heat, kind of surrounded by heat. It's sleepy. It's in the open. It's not hiding itself. It's, playing off that idea of what snakes do, which is sun themselves in the warm sun, right? A gilded orphan on the sun-warmed dirt, eye slits ajar, waiting for the infinite to arrive. A gilded orphan, I don't think you know right off the bat. Reading this, if the orphan's a snake, but the eye slits ajar seem to suggest this is the snake sitting on the sun-warmed dirt. So the snake, I'm not sure why it's called an orphan. Is it just because it's alone? Or it's alone as an idea that the artist is going to take, or that the snake is parentless, which is, an odd image of the snake. Eye slits ajar, it's like it's semi-awake, waiting for the infinite to arrive. This throws in a big, huge concept in the end, but I'm not sure how to take it here. The infinite, is this like the infinite of all time and space coming to you, like the divine infinite coming to you? Or is it the image of the snake as if it's the snake is waiting for like some kind of inspiration to come to it? Or, I'm not sure what to do beyond that, so we'll see as we go along. You want to strike it with a stick. So we got a second person here. So you want to strike it with a stick, which is, a lot of people's first reaction to it. So I don't know the you, is it's talking to the reader, or if there's some other person there, or if this is like the narrator talking to themselves. With you want to strike it with a stick. I'm not a big fan of second person in poems because I think usually it points towards the reader unless it's very explicit, but in this case it's not. And I don't really want to strike this snake with a stick, so it always feels a little odd. But you want an answer to the prayer that says, make use of me. So the you here doesn't feel like the reader in the second one. It feels more like it's talking to somebody with a narrator or somebody who's at the scene. You want an answer to the prayer that says, make use of me. So there's a prayer, which I don't know. It says, make use of me. So the make use of me, I'm not sure here if it's the person who is the you wants the answer to the prayer, which is literally what it says. But is make use of me about the you, or is it about the snake? Make use of this snake image that's out there and use it to do something, make use of the snake. So the snake is sitting there in the open, and it's suggesting, take this image, which the poet has because they've given us this, the narrator has, that is. Narrator has given us this image of a snake at the beginning, so it's been made use of. We don't know what for yet, but it's at least in the poem, and it's presented, right? answer to the prayer that says make use of it is like wanting to be useful. I'm not sure what to make more of that without knowing a little bit more about the you and who the yous are. Maybe that'll make sense as I go through the rest of this poem. One day, the old life simply sheds its dress and flows through the stones. Well, this is interesting because it leaves out a kind of subject for this old life that's flowing. The old life is literally shedding here. But whose old life is it? The old life of the artist? Is it the old life of the snake? We can see the snake image there shedding its skin and flowing off. But is this somehow referring to an artist who's, maybe come to the end of one subject, is moving into another one, or somebody who's come to some point in their life where they need to go off into another one, or something else, right? The snake image is pretty clear here, but it feels like it is more than the snake, the way this is put, because it doesn't say one day the snake sheds its skin. It just says one day the old life simply sheds its dress and flows through the stones, and it's called dress instead of skin here. So it makes it feel like it's more than just a snake. Then the future wavers up in you. So we have the you again. So I'm not sure the you is the you the artist, the narrator, and stands in your throat like flame. This very much feels like something, the artist as the poet here, playing on this image, like the future wavers up in you and comes out as flame, as if you're somehow speaking this heat or this image that shows up in the beginning. You've written this image, and if you say it, it's flaming as it is in the sun-warmed dirt, in the sleeve of heat. So I'm not sure if the you is thus, in this case, the poet, or the image of the poet. The narrator's talking about the poet, that this comes up, this one image of a snake that you've seen rises up out of you, and it acts as a metaphor for your own birth into song, or as Denise Levertov says in her great essay, Some Notes on Organic Formula here, and it compelled to song by the idea of the poem. It forces the song up in your throat as she says it. That's not an exact quote, but it's something like that. And I don't know if it's playing off that idea. It kind of feels like it. I'm curious. I feel like I need a few more poems by this poet to really kind of know how this work is meant to be interpreted. So, or how this person's work, how this is interpreted inside that person's work. So how to use the poet's own aesthetic to interpret the work that's in front of us without trying to use an outside aesthetic, or to, without using some literary theory, trying to do that clean read of it. Interesting, nonetheless, and it's worthwhile to follow up on. So, Jenny George.